Okay, as I show in this first line here, the purpose of this video is we're going to create many different types of built-in assertions. So I really want to show you the different types of assertions that are available for strings and iterators and so on, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. Before we get to that, I wanted to cover this part, and this talks about when to use assert, and that comes from the Zio documentation right there. So as I showed in previous videos, we can use assert true and we can use assert. So the question then becomes, when should you use assert? And the first condition they show here is that you should use it for complex assertions. So when you need to check complex conditions or custom assertions. As I did mention before, you use assert true when you want a simple boolean condition right in this area right here. So if you have something more complicated than a boolean condition, that's when you're going to want to come over and use assert. You can also use assert when you have multiple assertions. So you use operators like and or, and others. And I've shown this before, and I'll talk about that more now. And a third scenario is when you have custom logic. So if you want to create a custom assertion, again, by combining multiple assertions or adding specific logic, that's where you can use assert. So again, the big question really is, can I express this as a boolean? If so, I probably want to use assert true. If not, use assert. And then as you'll see in future videos, when you have an effect, instead of using any of these two, we'll use a different function, and that one's called assert zio. And then you'll have your effect inside of here. But that is for future videos. So right now, we're just going to focus on assert and assert true. First thing I wanted to do here was compare the error messages. So I had a note to myself that by default, the assert error messages are nicer than the assert true one. So let me show you what we have here real quick. So this test is named assert, all capitals. This one is assert true, all capitals. So we're asserting test string contains zio, and we're asserting true test string contains zio. Let me change that back. So I have that changed back. Now I want to come over here and run a test. So both of those should be true. And so far, so good. And now if we change this to something like foo there and foo here, and save that, and then we'll come back over here and run that again. Now you can see the difference in the output. So this output here is from the assert true test right there. So it says result was false, test string contains foo, and it's nice enough to show you the test string right there. So as test messages go, that's really not too bad at all. But assert is actually nicer, and it says this string right here did not contain foo right there. So that's really nice right there. That's pretty much human readable right there. Where up here you have to parse a couple of sentences. This gives you a nice human readable sentence right there. And then it gives you more information right there. So this is just a nice example that assert, by default, gives you better error output than assert true does. However, you can also do what I did before and put a label on either of these and then put a descriptive message here. So we'll put a descriptive message here. So I can put a label there on assert, and I can put one here. So let me save those two and come over here and run that one more time. So for assert true here, we get the same information in these two lines, this one and this one right here. We also get our descriptive message. And for assert down here, we get that nice human readable error message right there. And then we also get our descriptive message and the other output that we had earlier. So really the only change in both of these is that we have our descriptive error message being added to the output for both assert true and assert right here. So again, by default, what we can see is that assert has nicer error messages than assert true. So let me comment that out. And let's scroll down here and see what we're going to look at next. Give me a little room there. Do you get that? And let me clear that over there so I don't have to see that right now. So the second purpose of this video is to show some more information about assertions. So I want to be clear that these assertions, like start with string, come out of this assertion object right there like that. So that's going to be the first point. I want to show how to create an assertion as a value. So this is going to be that value right there. I'm going to show how to use the AND operator, and then I'm going to show how to use this inside of a for expression, which is going to be right here. So these are 4 things that I want to do right here. So what we have here is a test. We have that test string right there. I have a test string right there too, so let me comment that one out. Let's see, and come back here. So the first thing I want to do is highlight this code right here and show what I'm doing. So I am creating an assertion as a value. So this is a variable name right there, and this is the type of the variable. So this is an assertion of type string. And I'm creating that by creating 2 assertions over here. So I'm saying that we have an assertion. I'm saying that it starts with the string hello, and there's the AND operator right there. And then the assertion ends with the string world, like that. So from here to here, that's one complete assertion. And as I mentioned, I assign that to this variable name right here. So then what I'm doing down here is I'm using that inside of this for expression right there. So what am I doing here? I say I'm zio succeeding on this test string right there. So that gives me this output right here. Then in the yield area here, I can use that assert function right there like that. And then I want to assert right here that the output that I'm getting from the for expression right there matches my AND assertion value, which is the one I just created right there. And that is these 2 tests right here. So let me save that. And do I have what I need here? I do. So save that and compile that. And you see the success value right there. And if we add a couple O's there, then we could try to see what the error message looks like as well. And then over here, we can see the error output. So we have our suite is called assertion tests. This test is called test assertions, which is that text right there. And then we have hello world did not start with hello right there. So indeed it did not. So it says output did not satisfy AND assertion, which is really nice. And then it shows the actual result of the output, which is also nice. So I like that. That's really helpful right there. So let me go back to here like that. And one thing I'm trying to be clear about right here is that these functions, like starts with string and ends with string, are in this assertion object here like that. So I just wanted to show that normally what I do, since I have that imported up here, I should have assertion.star imported right there. So that's good enough that you can just write starts with string and ends with string. So I'll save that and run that. And you can see that works just fine. So then when I come back here, I'll go ahead and put those back in. So again, I was just trying to be clear that these functions are inside of that assertion object right there. And I also have this note that says don't write your code this way. So I was just trying to show this for expression because you might be familiar with for expressions, or you might also need to use a for expression from time to time in your tests. And when you need to do that, this gives you an idea of what you need to do. And the key to this success really right here is that I'm using my assertion in the yield area right there. So I don't know how often you'll need to do that, but when you need to, that's an example of how to do that. The more concise test is here. And you can see the difference here is that when I'm using assert here, I'm working directly with this string right here. What I was doing in this area here was I was working with an effect. So I was working with output as an effect and then running assert down there. So this could be a good example right here that when you need to test the result of an effect, this is one possible way you can do that. But I'm going to show you more in future videos, so don't get too hung up on that right now. So this one I'm directly asserting that the string starts with string and ends with string like that. So I will come over here and run that. And then one thing we should be able to do is take that AND assertion right there and say, I want to put that right there and save that and then come back over here. And you can see that that worked just like before. So I don't remember why I had this in there in the long format, but the intention here was to show how to use an assertion as a value right there. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is use that assertion as value. So I think I covered all these points, right? I showed assertion.star in this area right here and that area right there. I showed how to create an assertion as a value. We did that, and I mentioned that several times. I showed the AND operator right here, and I will cover that more, but we've seen it before, and you'll see it more in future examples. I also showed this for expression right here. So that was these bullet points right here. Now what I'm going to do is show a lot of assertion tests. So I'm going to remove that like that. Let's see, can I just go all the way down? What have I done there? Let's see, we'll go all the way there. Okay, if I did everything right, let me save that, and what we do is just test it and see what I've done. Okay, so all those tests pass. So what I'm trying to show in bullet point number 3 is different types of assertions that are built in, and these are for different types like strings, numeric values, iterators, booleans, either, option, and I have try down below. I didn't note try up here, but I have that down below as well. So I showed all these string ones before, and the only thing I want to note here really is the AND operators used here. So it's basically I want to assert this, and I want to assert this, and I want to assert this, and so on, all the way down through here. So that's what the AND operator is doing, is letting us combine all these assertions together. And if you're interested, one thing we can do is change one of these tests and see what that output looks like. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see up here in the string assertions, hello zio test did not end with foo. And then we see test string did not satisfy ends with string right there. So that was the ends with string right there. And let me change another thing here so we could take a look at that as well. So we'll run another test. And I kind of like this output here, right? Because I've changed this test right here to fail, and I changed this test right here to fail. So you can see with the AND operator, when I'm combining all these tests, I get the result for both errors. So I get this error about the bar part right there that I just added, and then I also get the foo error. So that's really nice to be able to get both of those errors when we're using the AND operator over here. So let me change that back. So these are all string tests, and again, the names are very meaningful, I think. Then we come down to this one matches, so that's matching that, and then we're saying it's true. And as I mentioned earlier, this one could be rewritten as assert true, because we are using is true over here. But a nice thing about assert is that it does have that nicer output there, so I'm going to leave it like that. But you should be able to say assert true here if you want to, and then get rid of that is true. That's what I'm thinking of right there. So let me save that and come over here. So that's something that you can do if you want to. Otherwise, if you prefer the nicer messages by default, we can go back to assert like that. What else do we have? This one will be exactly equal to the string we're saying is not empty. Again, that is true right there, so that could be assert true. And this is empty again, could also be assert true right there. Then the numeric assertions I haven't shown before, so you can see some of these functions right here. Is it 0? Is it positive, negative? Is it greater than or equal to, less than or equal to? Is it within some range, or is it approximately equal to? So if I didn't show numeric assertions before, there's a nice little collection of those. Now we have iterator assertions, so I start off with this list of 1, 2, 3. And then you can see these functions that are written for iterative. So this is kind of a nice condition right from here to here. So contains is function for iterators, and we're saying, does this iterator, x of s over here, contain 1, and does it contain 2, and does it contain 3? So that's really nice to be able to put all that together, and then you can use the and to add these other tests down here, just like we did before. Then we can say, does it have the size equal to 3? Yes, it is. Make sure it has none of these things in this list. Here's a not operator, does not contain 5. You could check here, is the first element 0 equal to 1? That's a fun one right there. And then we have is non-empty. And then we sort the list over here. And then we use the is sorted function right there. So those are some really nice iterator functions that you can use. Boolean assertions are a little simpler. We have is true and is false right there. Again, with the and operator. Either assertions right here. We have two functions right here that we can use, is right or is left. So I create a value of 42 as a right, and then that one is right. And then I create a left of foo, and then I say is left. So that shows a couple of examples there. Option is going to be dealing with option, sum, and none values. So I assert that a none is none. Here I assert that a sum of 42 is a sum. And then I say, is it a sum and is it equal to 42 right there? So that's a nice way to be able to combine that. I don't know why I put none in there twice. Sorry, I just see that I repeated these tests. I was probably doing something, but I repeated those tests. Let's get rid of those. So actually what I wanted to show in these last two examples is that you can combine these assertion functions. So what I'm doing here is I'm combining is sum, which works on option values, and then combining that with these other numeric functions that I showed before. I don't know if I showed equal to before. I don't see equal to up there. I did show is greater than, right? I did show that. Now the benefit here is you can see that I'm showing equal to, and I'm also showing is greater than right there. So again, the purpose of this code that I have highlighted here is to show that you can combine these assertion functions together to get expressive tests that you want. So in one test, I'm saying, is it a sum and is it equal to 42? And then something similar right here by combining these two assertions. And then down here, we had try test. So I showed either here, an option here, and I'm showing try just a little bit differently. So let me save that. And what am I doing here? So we have a result. We take 42 by 2, and then I'm asserting that that result is a success. So remember that try has these types, try, success, and failure. So scroll back down there again. So I'm asserting that result is going to be a success, and it's going to be equal to 21, which is true right there. In this case, I'm saying try to divide 42 by 0. So here I'm asserting that result is a failure. So this is a success type here. This is a failure type here. And then a nice thing we can do with that down here is say the same thing in this section here is result of failure. But now we can say, I want to check and see if it has a message and say that that message is equal to / by 0. So let's go over here and make sure everything works as desired. And there you go. We can see all of these assertion tests now working. So as a little bit of a summary, what we covered here was some iterator assertions, string assertions, numeric, Boolean, option, either, and try assertions. And in addition to covering all of those, I also showed in this section here and in this line here how you can start to combine these assertion functions together to get exactly what you want to get in your tests.